Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson says one reason he's abandoned plans to buy up toxic mortgage securities is that they're just too hard to put a concrete value on, since no one else is interested in buying them. But that hasn't stopped his colleagues at the Federal Reserve from making emergency loans to banks totaling $2 trillion so far this year and taking bad assets as collateral. Put another way, the Fed has already lent out about 7 times as much money as the Treasury has spent. It's attracted a lot less media attention, and we the taxpayers can't independently assess how risky those bets are. Bloomberg News has been trying to get to the bottom of the story. They filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the Federal Reserve. But as Bloomberg News editor-in-chief Matt Winkler told Brooke Gladstone recently on the Media, so far, they've been unable to get even the most basic facts.
We have no idea what the collateral is, and we don't know who is receiving these loans. You know, when the Federal Reserve was conceived in the early part of the 20th century, the subject of the Fed's monetary activities wasn't a mystery. What is different now is that for the first time, and really this is unprecedented, the Fed is now accepting all kinds of troubled assets. And so we just think it's appropriate for the American taxpayer to know, well, what is this collateral that the Fed is now putting on its balance sheet on behalf, if you will, of the American taxpayer?
And basically what they're telling Congress and the rest of us is, don't worry, we have collateral, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. So it could be a $30 million home or it could be an old sneaker.
That's absolutely right. And the reason why this is such an important issue is because there actually are a lot of people in the marketplace right now who say that the market is going to continue to be troubled as long as the Treasury and the Fed maintain, if you will, this opaque wall between what the Fed and the Treasury are doing and the market.
Why would the opaque wall, I mean, I'm against it, I suppose, on principle, but why would that lead to a continuation of our time of troubles?
Well, we'd all like to know what the truth is. What is the value of these assets? If the Fed is taking them on its balance sheet, that means the Fed is buying and selling assets from these troubled financial institutions to help them so that they can lend money as they used to lend money in a normal way. The marketplace would benefit from knowing what those values are. And as soon as the marketplace does know, well, that's going to help the market begin recovery. It's kind of like once you know what the disease is, then it's a lot easier to begin thinking about, well, what should the cure be?
I was surprised when I read in one of Bloomberg's stories, Barney Frank seemed to agree with one financial expert saying, and I have the quote here, you have to balance the need for transparency with protecting the public interest. Taxpayers have a right to know where their tax dollars are going, but one piece of information standing alone could undermine public confidence in the system. Do you think that this notion that this kind of information could harm the economic recovery by instilling more fear holds water?
Well, that's one interpretation, but who should make that judgment? There are plenty of professionals in the credit markets whose living depends on managing debt securities. Their argument is the market will continue to be dysfunctional as long as the troubled assets that the Fed is buying and selling remain opaque. That's just a pretty sensible explanation why the Fed should take the step of disclosing this and let us, being everybody, figure out how to deal with reality. That's one argument. The second argument, of course, is it's everybody's money who is an American citizen, and therefore they are entitled to know this.
I wonder, do you think there's too much focus on the $700 billion? That number's imprinted on our brains, whereas really the amount of taxpayer money being loaned out is almost 3 times that amount.
I do think it's important that we keep in focus the biggest number, because that puts it in perspective, the magnitude, if you will, of the credit calamity we're in. And just 2 years ago, if I told you that the Federal Reserve would have loaned $2 trillion to a variety of financial institutions, and you don't know which institutions they are, and it's because they're all in trouble, you would have probably suggested that I was speaking about another country and maybe on another planet.
That's Matt Winkler, editor-in-chief at Bloomberg News. He spoke last week with On the Media's Brooke Gladstone.